Past 6:30, so we're ready to start. I'll just invite Uday to also put on his camera and unmute. Thank you, and thanks Uday for joining us. Just as a quick introduction, and we're now close to almost about 1,000 participants, and I think that grows up. So obviously a fair amount of interest. And Uday, just for we're also on the Book My Show platform, and then goes on to YouTube Live. So I think in today's day and age, outside of the fact that there's definitely an attraction to hear what you have to say, today I think people are also really hungry for inspiration and for sharing experiences. And I think that's what we look forward to, you talking to us over the next 45 minutes or so. I think I've known Uday for a very, very long time. And all I can say that today, I can't find a more appropriate way to introduce him than saying his in-depth knowledge of the consumer across India, from the heartland to the hinterland, is something that I think stands out amongst many others. Whether it's because of his journalistic background, to his deep-seated passion for news, to then overall media and entertainment, you cannot build what Uday has built and what he's contributed to an entire sector and industry over 2 decades if you don't have that kind of very deep understanding of the consumer at every sense of the word. And I think today, more than ever, this is something that is so appropriate for us, because as we see ourselves in a situation where the lockdown and non-lockdown period may happen, but that I think there are two parallel aspects. One is, how does everyone get back to business? But even when everyone gets back to business, the big challenge is going to be, how is the consumer going to behave at that particular time? What is going to be consumption trends as we go forward? So one is, you're going to set up the supply side, but what is going to happen to the demand side? And the demand side and the supply side are not connected. And I think these are some of the issues that I think we'll tackle and talk about today, outside of some of the other ones. Uday, I think since 2007, when he took over Star TV as the CEO, and now is the president of the Walt Disney Company and chairman of Disney and Star in India, as I said, has contributed an incredible amount. Uday, I want to thank you for joining us. Today we have working professionals, we have learners, leaders. So I think all learners and all leaders, and over to you.
Thank you, Ronnie. And hello, everyone. Hello to everyone that I have already been introduced to in the past, and to those many of you who have not had the fortune to be knowing from before. Thank you also for the very generous introduction, Ronnie. Coming from someone who's been an inspiration for all of us who worked in media and who work in media, that is quite a introduction. Thank you. I'm flattered. Now to the topic today. First and foremost, I hope all of you who are here, you're safe and your dear ones are safe and taking care to stay safe. Please keep it that way, because if there is one thing that we all want, and that's paramount in no matter what concerns we might have and what plans we might have, is personal safety and safety of our near ones. Because unless you're safe, there is nothing to look forward to. Now, in terms of, as far as the topic is concerned, I think we are all worried. We are all worried about what will happen to us. Maybe we are lucky enough to escape the infection today, but are we likely to catch it tomorrow? Or someone that I care about might catch it tomorrow. And then from the personal health and safety, if we move on to start looking at the outside world, the fears get even more complex. First and foremost, those of us who are working professionals like me, what happens to our jobs? And then those who are entrepreneurs, have startups, have their own businesses, what happens to our businesses? Now, you must have been doing your own research, and there is a lot of information coming from everywhere about what's likely to happen to the economy. So let me first tell you that it does look bad. There is no point, trying to soften the bad news, but it does look bad. So let's all get prepared for that. Those of us who are lucky enough to avoid the infection will face second order challenges. Many of us will have to take a reduction in our salaries. The ones who are less fortunate may lose a job. Those who have businesses will struggle with liquidity, cash, and all of that. And this is, you don't need to be an expert in economics to understand this. It's very simple that today, if the entire country is going to be locked down, and for all the right reasons, but if the entire country has been locked down for 5 or 6 weeks, essentially means that the wheels of the economy have come to a halt. And that will have its effect. By most accounts, it looks like at least a couple of quarters will be totally lost in terms of economic value. Now, if that is happening and India is about a $2.5 trillion economy, you can imagine the impact of it. This is a kind of economic setback that this country has not seen since independence. We have had many hiccups. We have had some turbulence along the way, but this kind of undifferentiated pan-national economic crisis is not something that we have seen. Especially for most of us who are on this call, we who got into a productive life cycle since the liberalization began in 1991, we've had a fairly comfortable ride. And for us, it's even bigger challenge. We've been so focused on looking at a better future and a more glorious future and giving wings to our ambition, that not having clarity on, or not having the conviction that things are going to get only better tomorrow, is the single biggest source of fear for everybody. And that's the one that I first want to address. I think the world has become tougher. This virus has created a crisis which is unprecedented. However, the world is not going to come to an end. The world has seen crises like this, and it has survived, and it has survived to grow stronger. Just about 100 years ago, the Spanish flu was a much bigger crisis because science was less developed, medical care was less developed, and people's ability to counteract these challenges were far less developed. And yet, by all accounts, it looks like historical estimates suggest that anything from 50 to 100 million people, which means basically from 5 crore to 10 crore people died in the world in Spanish flu. Over 25% population of the world was infected in some form or the other by the flu. And yet, imagine what has, you can only imagine and see for yourself the progress that the world has made in the last 100 years. So the first and foremost lesson that we need to take from this whole thing is that it's a crisis, it's a setback, but the world is not coming to an end. This is not Armageddon. The world will emerge stronger, we'll find a cure for the virus, and we will get about our lives and get stronger and get better. So be positive and believe in this. This is not just some pep talk, but that's been the history of the world, because many crises, the Black Plague and the Spanish flu and world wars and all kinds of other issues, famines, etc., have merely been a halt in the onward march of the human race. We will get out of this one, and we are today better positioned than we have ever been in the past. Now, talking about us as individuals, the most important thing that you can do today is to have that self-belief. Every crisis creates its own winners, and even the absence of crisis has losers. Don't forget that. Even if the world is a great place, businesses go bankrupt, people lose jobs, people do not get increments, and people struggle. And even in the toughest of times, people are winners. I'll tell you a story of my own. I'm a practitioner. Let me just qualify this. I'm a practitioner. I'm not a theoretician. So my only learnings are based on my own experiences and the journey that I have led. So, to all of you, and with the permission of Ronnie, I will use my own experience to give you anecdotes and to help you understand how I look at the world. That's the only thing I can do. So even when there is no crisis, we sometimes create crisis of our own. I created a crisis of my own many years ago, exactly actually 25 years ago, when I was a well-settled news journalist doing well in print medium, and I was reasonably well looked after by my company. By all accounts, I was comfortable, but I had this massive desire. for TV. TV was just about to open up in India, and I thought it fascinated me. The whole idea of moving pictures and sound, explaining to you how the world behaved and what the real story was, instead of just words and still pictures in a newspaper, was fascinating. And one day, I just quit my job, which was paying me very well, and decided to try my luck in television. And what followed was a few years of serious hardship. And believe me, when I say this, that at that time, the crisis didn't look any better or any less than the crisis that we are facing today on coronavirus. The challenge of coronavirus is that it's a large-scale crisis affecting the whole society. But to an individual who's struggling, it is, whether it is affecting many people or one person, is no comfort or no solace. So sometimes human beings, just because they follow their passion and because they're by nature adventurous and they're ambitious and they like to scale new mountains, they leave comfort and go into a zone of discomfort. And that is what the world has pushed us into at a mass scale, unfortunately, but that is where this crisis has pushed everybody into. We were all settled, most of us, in a very comfortable zone, and it is pushing us into discomfort, into unknown. And it's the fear of the unknown that's keeping us awake. It is, we don't know what will happen tomorrow. Will we get liquidity if we need to get working capital? Will we get a loan? Will we be able to, if we are employers, will we be able to pay our employees? Will we have to lay off? If we are employees, what will happen to me? So all those questions. But those questions are exactly the kind of questions that we should be asking today. The fear, in my own opinion, is a very good attribute. It's a driver for us to deploy the best that we have. And as I said, with my own experience, I will tell you that we should not worry too much about the unknown, because it's not in your control. I always say to my team that the biggest fear that I face is crossing the road in the traffic of this country, because somebody who's jumping the red light can just run you over. And even in the safest world, that's no comfort, how you die. So we should be positive. What we should think about is, how do we deal with this situation? If we have to go forward, which we all have to, then what do we do next? So most importantly, I think all of us should reduce the risk that we take. All the risk that we have to take cannot be avoided, but minimize your risk. That's the most important thing. That is what is called, the exalted word for that is strategy. Strategy is all about making choices. So whether it is in your personal life or it is in your professional life, in your business or in your job, have a strategy. What is it that you can avoid doing right now? And what is it that you must do right now? And there is a very simple filter that I apply for myself to take these decisions. What is it that I'm really good at? Stay with what you're good at and build on that. Don't abandon what you're good at, what your core skills are. Build around those core skills. Acquire a new skill. Acquire some knowledge. Be curious. All those things, but do not abandon what your core strength is. If you're an engineer, stay with engineering. It's great to learn a few other skills. It's great to get a degree. It's great to get some more knowledge. But in times of crisis, stay with what your core strength is, because it's your strength. Why would you abandon this? The second thing is that reduce your liabilities at a time like this, whether it is in business or in your personal life, whether it is financial liability or otherwise. You should be carrying much less baggage. So if you had that plan of buying that new car or the new two-wheeler, or investing in capex to grow the business, hold on for a while. Let the tide settle down and see how it goes. And then you can always, don't abandon the plans, but hold on. That would be my advice, because when the tide is rising, hold your ground rather than trying to swim to a better place. Tides always recede, and this one will recede too. And that's how I always follow that. Ronnie referred to my joining Star India in 2007, soon after I joined Star India. And I'm not a trained CEO. I'm a trained content person, a news journalist who got this job. Soon after that, the global financial crisis took place. And the whole world was riven. At that time, the global financial crisis looked as big a crisis as this one is today. It looked like the world was going to come to an end. And we in India were equally affected. And at that time, I decided that, there had to be an opportunity. My own understanding of history, as I've been a student of history, taught me one thing, that every situation has a winner and some losers. And I got my team together and we started thinking about what is it that we would do and what is it that we would not do, because both are equally important. And we decided that we will build on our core strength, our core entertainment channel, which was Star Plus. We would strengthen that. And we decided that we would invest in that and we would not do anything new or different for some time. So after some time, when we were coming out of the global financial crisis, our core business was much stronger and we had much fewer liabilities that we had to worry about. And that would be my advice once again. Strengthen your core, build around it one or two critical assets or skills or attributes, but the rest of it can wait. Anything that's not urgent can wait. Anything that does not strengthen your core should wait. Thirdly, take a risk. And it sounds counterintuitive. You might even think that I have lost it. But there is no better time than this to take some risks. But take very calibrated risk. And again, to strengthen your core. Because right now is the time when nobody is taking a risk. Do not gamble. There is a big difference between gamble and risk. Do not gamble. You should never gamble anyway. And at a time like this, gambling is a bad idea. The stock market is down. Let me go and buy some shares of this company X and company Y. Avoid that. You do not know enough about this. You do not know whether it is the bottom or the bottom is further down. So that kind of risk is gambling. Unless you're a veteran and unless you have great information better than anyone else, I would not recommend that. But I have been wanting to do something because I believe that it will allow me to become a better professional or become a better entrepreneur. Right now is the time to do this. You're sitting at home, you can invest your time in learning a new skill. And I know a large number of people who are spending their time. You could either keep watching Hotstar, which is great for us, or you could watch some of Hotstar and you could also learn a course. You can pick up a course and you can do something like that, which will always stay with you. It will help you. Knowing something I find is always very uplifting. It gives you confidence, something that you did not know and you know today. It's the journey from ignorance to awareness and to knowledge. And knowledge is the source of confidence. So do something like that. I believe that is really, really going to be useful. And you can't use your time more productively than that. The other thing, strategize. Strategy is a really, really powerful word. And it's also made to sound very complicated by all the professors and by all the consultants. It's very simple. You make choices. What will I not do and what will I do? Every day we strategize in our personal lives, at home, educated people, uneducated people. Even when we are buying vegetables, we decide, will I buy this? I won't buy this because this is very expensive. This may rot very soon. This may not last. I don't need it. That is what strategy is all about. As long as you have clarity of purpose and you work backwards from there. So today, why do you want to do something? When times are good, everybody wants to do everything. As they say, the tide gets all boats to rise. But when the tides are receding, that's when a good boat is recognized. So strategize. Decide what is it that you will do and what is it that you will absolutely not do. What are the things that you will postpone and may consider doing later? And what are the things that you will absolutely not do? There is no better time than this to take the decision. A lot of things that you've been postponing in work or in personal life, in investment, in expenditure, in acquisition, in disposing things, anything that you've been postponing so far because life was okay, the business was doing well, our jobs were going great, we were getting an annual increment. Now is the time to hit pause and review everything. That is what I would do. That is what, when things get tough, personally, this is what I do. Oh my God, it's getting tough. It's going to get tougher. How do I lighten my load? So there is no better time to take those decisions that you have been, you've been pushing out or you've been postponing. It's a good time to do that. Do that. Another one, my own personal philosophy: listen to everyone else, but go with your own instinct. There are Nobel laureates who are telling us how bad the economy will get and what we should do and what we should not do. There are philosophers, there are religious gurus, and there are political leaders. Everyone is telling us, and there is a lot of wisdom in all of that. I have no doubt about it. But, finally, it's my own life. So I have always believed that take all inputs, but process that for yourself. I personally, as a journalist, I was somewhat trained, and my own personal disposition has been very helpful in that. I do not turn my face away from any information, any input that comes to me. Somebody tells me, I'm in a business of media and entertainment. The one thing I have learned is that everybody has a great story that they think should be made into a television series or a movie, and it will do well. I listen to all of them, and then I go and do the series that I want to make. There is no guarantee that it will be successful, but there is one guarantee, that if it fails, I know that this is what I wanted to do, and I failed doing what I wanted to do, rather than I failed doing what somebody else wanted me to do. You don't want to fail and be miserable because you listened to somebody. You want to fail because you wanted to do this. This was the right thing in your conviction to do. And then it will give you the confidence, the desperate strength inside you to make it work. Most of the time, whether times are good or bad, the first attempt is not a success. But if you have determination, it was the idea that you always wanted to pursue, you will go and do this. You will make it work because it's about yourself. You do not want to fail. So my advice, these are tough times. Internet is giving us a lot of free wisdom. A lot of it is serious wisdom. A lot of it is spurious wisdom. See all of that, scan all of it, but use your intelligence. Nobody knows your own strengths and weaknesses better than yourself. Something that works for someone may not work for you. I give an example from cricket, a national passion, that if I'm a good onside player, I should stay with my onside shots. It is, do not abandon your onside shots because somebody else plays great offside shots. Because if that is not your strength, at best, you will be a mediocre offside player. Having and working on your onside shots and making it the perfect shot in the whole world will make you a Virat Kohli or a Sachin Tendulkar. But just because the other person, my friend, has a great offside shot, I should start doing, or it looks very attractive and it gets a lot of stadium applause, that's not a good idea. And that brings me to my next point. Do not go for this applause from the stadium. Again, to the point, do what you believe in, do what is right. Oftentimes, when you're doing the right thing, people will tell you that you've lost it. Another story from my own life. When we were launching Hotstar 5 years ago, India was famously dismissed as a data dark market. 3G was still not ubiquitous. 4G and LTE were not there. Smartphone population was very small. Data was really expensive. India was one of the most expensive data markets. And at that time, I thought that a large number of people who didn't have television screens, but wanted to consume video, and they were all buying mobile phones. I thought at some stage, these people would want to watch content on their mobile phone, and we should get ready for that. I still remember a very well-meaning friend, someone far more successful than me, at that time cautioned me that, the problem is that your company has too much money and your bosses have too much faith in you. And you're going to waste a lot of money. Be careful. But I really wanted to do that because I believed, I understood how this company thinks, how this country thinks and believes. I felt that there was this urge for content. Content was a huge source of democratization. From the beginning, only the rich and the influential had access to content. And one of the things that democracy does is it widens the access to content for everybody. And I thought there was a technological solution that was knocking at our doors. If we were ready, we would benefit from it. And for a couple of years, it was a big struggle. Nobody believed that there was anything to offer, and the consumers were very few. And for them, it was expensive. And then suddenly, data access became ubiquitous. Reliance Jio happened, and the other telcos started making data available. And today, Hotstar is one of the most successful streaming services in the whole world. And we wouldn't have been able to do this if we didn't do that. And I wouldn't have had the confidence to do it if I didn't have the conviction to do this. So go with your conviction. In tough times, conviction is what keeps you going. Just imagine the soldier who's fighting on the border. When these bullets are coming at you from all around, what keeps the guy going? The only thing that keeps you going is the belief that I can fire my own bullets, they will hit the target, and finally I will win. And that's very important. So I would say I have followed that all my life. I've gone and done, at a time when everybody thought that cricket was losing its ground and sports had nothing to offer. We decided at Star, and I must own it up, that I pushed the company and persuaded the company to do that. We will get into sports. Another, we would get into cricket. And we believed that the power of cricket was only going to grow. And that's been our experience. In the last 5 or 6 years that we've been actively in the business of cricket, the number of consumers has almost doubled up. Another example of something that Ronnie and I share is the story of Kabaddi. We believe it was a sport which was hundreds, if not thousands of years old in this country. Everybody knew, but nobody took it as a serious formal sport. And at that time, some of us, Ronnie was one of the first to sign up. Some of us believed that this country would actually watch Kabaddi if it was made to look like a serious modern sport. And we've done that. And I'm sure most of you have seen a little bit of Kabaddi, if not a lot of it. Today, it is the second most watched sport in the country. But I could not have done this. There were many people, just as an aside, who were coming to us with the idea of doing basketball and doing, other sports, just because they were more successful elsewhere in the world. But I believed, I understood India, and I believed that I had some understanding of India. And I realized that Indians would like to watch something that they have grown up with, that they have seen in their own neighborhood, and that was going to be important. So my message from there is that just stay with what you believe in, go with your conviction. And finally, I would just like to add one more thing, that be positive. The world has not ended so far, and it won't end this time again. If you are safe and healthy, you will be able to finally triumph. There are, a lot of us. The problem with all of us is that we only read the success. Rarely do we get a full insight into the journey to the success. And believe me, I have lived this myself, and the people that I know and admire, they've all had to face many setbacks, many failures, many handicaps along the way before they got the big success for which the world admires and remembers them. Coronavirus is no different. This country has been really, really prompt in trying to stay ahead of the curve, flatten the graph. A lockdown is really miserable for almost everyone. For some people, it's been an unbearable misery and our hearts go out to them. But individuals and the country both will come out stronger from this. Only thing that we require is to be positive and not be selfish. In this time, we need community, friends, family, relations, society, nation, even more than we have ever needed in the past. So being selfish will not get us anywhere. I have always believed. So all of us should be doing charity today. Nobody who's on this call cannot afford to do some charity for a few people. We should make their lives better and our lives will get better. Let's believe in that. So here is where I will stop. Ronnie, I'm happy to take some questions and answers. As I told you, I'm not a philosopher. I'm not a theoretician. This is what I have practiced in my life, and this is some glimpses of that.
We've got more than 1,650 people here, and I think what they really wanted was views of a practitioner, and I think they've got that. From your draw the line on risk to many others. And I think the beauty of this, a very engaging half an hour, there seriously was very down to earth, because I think that's what people, and I think your anecdotal environments have given all of us a sense of what we can identify with. So there are, I scanned the group for questions. I've sort of curated that my own for us to just do a quick discussion. One of the things for me is I do find still today, everyone looking at everything in a very short-term manner. There's a sense of, oh, it's all so uncertain. The situation is so fluid. And my problem with everyone is they're thinking too short-term. And the point is that today, of course, it's fluid, but the people who are going to lead have to take hard calls to take a 3-month, 6-month, 9-month view, because then you can build confidence with people. So just your view on this whole element where almost everyone, even at leaders, say it's very fluid, but the point is we still do know what the outcome could be. The sense is for the next 6 to 9 months, it may be start, stop. So your view on just the short term versus the long term, the more insecurity I think with the young people today is if you look at things on a week-to-week basis. And what's your advice on whether we should look at this on a week-to-week basis? How fluid versus getting some clarity on that?
It is going to be fluid and it is going to be bad. And I also think that all of us, should hope for it to get better sooner than later, but all of us should be realistically be prepared for it to get worse before it gets better. So the one thing that you should absolutely avoid is the short term. Do not expect the short term to get better. Please be prepared, as I was saying, that you may have to take a reduced income. You may have to, abandon plans. But, India is a country of very youthful people. We all have a long life ahead of us. A few quarters or even a year or two is not what we are planning for. You really want to judge yourself. I have always believed personally, I don't like, while attractive and glamorous as it might be, I don't like 100-meter sprints, but I really admire a marathon. The marathon runner looks very unattractive, almost quote unquote unsexy in front of a sprinter. But the marathoner keeps running and keeps running and keeps running for 2 hours, 3 hours, and 4 hours and covers a distance. And that is the ultimate skill. And that is the ultimate test of character and success. Endurance and build something that's lasting. But by definition, it will take some time. So I think my advice to youth is youths are impetuous, they are impatient, and that's why it's so delightful. They're full of energy and they want to achieve everything overnight. But that's not going to happen. You will dissipate a lot of energy in trying to achieve that, and you will get very frustrated. Take a deep breath and pace it out. Be prepared. You should judge yourself and your progress based on where you are in the next 1 year and then in the next 2 or 3 years.
Uday, just to finish off that point, if I was an employee in the company that you were leading, and I would look to you saying, you're telling me things every week. Is there anything you can tell me over 3 months? Is there any certainty that you can give me? What do leaders need to chant out at that time? Just to put that into very anecdotal.
So at this time, so just to share with you, we have voluntarily rolled out a program for senior executives to take a salary cut. We don't need to be honest, but we decided to do that as an investment in future. that we want to be prepared. And I'm happy to say that it's been hugely received. Everybody has very positively reacted to that. And to the young executives, this is what I said. In a town hall to my own company, I just said that this is the time when we start investing in the next cycle, and we start working towards that in 1 year's time or 2 years' time, can we be twice as strong as we were when the crisis hit us? And there must be a plan for that. It won't be obvious because nobody had prepared for this. So if someone tells you that they were prepared for this, they are lying.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. So, but there must be a plan, and think of that plan and start working on that plan in your personal career and in your business and profession.
So this whole supply and demand thing, and I think I'm putting that not in a macro sense, but even in the micro sense, because I think everyone is still looking at when will we go back to work? When will factories start? When will things happen? Normalcy. And I think everyone is really obsessed about getting back to some sense of normalcy. My personal concern is that we may be ignoring that consumer trends and consumption patterns may have changed for the short, medium, or long term. Therefore, I'm just saying, for example, an automobile company churning out 25 lakh rupee cars, there may not be a market for that. People are going to be extremely prudent. They definitely don't want to take the school bus for their kids. They don't want to take the public transport. Maybe the two-wheelers and the 7.5 lakh, up to 7.5 lakh automobile company, that product may go forward. What do you think are the one or two real needle-moving changes in consumer patterns that I think everyone should really preempt right now?
Look, first and foremost, it's a great question, Ronnie, and I've been thinking about it too. First and foremost, I think people are going to be really careful about going out and being in crowded places, which means taking public transport. And I don't just mean Mumbai locals and Delhi metros. I also mean, even if you're taking a taxi, you may be paying a lot and you might be sitting alone in the taxi, but you don't know who sat just before you in that taxi. So people are going to be careful for their personal health. But more than that, and that starts determining your behavior. Maybe you're being very careful with everything and your office is great, but you share a common lift, you share a common toilet, and all of those things are going to be a risk factor. But above all, I find this current, to be the new normal, and it's very efficient. It's exhausting and tiring because there's no differentiation between work and home. But I think I find myself to be far more productive because I'm able to focus a great deal more on what is important, what's urgent. Let's face it, that at work, whether we are working for someone else or for ourselves, we spend a lot of time doing trivial things, doing inessential things. Meetings run longer because you're in the same room and somebody is finishing coffee, etc., etc. This one is great. It's very efficient. Yeah. Today, technology. So why do we need to get up in the morning and eat some breakfast and rush and spend next 30 minutes to 2 hours in the traffic and do the same thing in the evening? We are so exhausted that by the time we go home, we have nothing.
So you would advocate your company slowly as you go forward, that might be even more efficient to have a new normal.
I think it's a real thing. I would think, and it's good for the environment. It's good, it's good for personal finance. We don't need to spend money on fossil fuels and petrol and those expensive 25 lakh rupee cars. So I think it's a real thing. Why, if all of us today are shopping once a week, when we desperately need something, then we buy it. Why do we have to go shopping every weekend?
Yeah.
So the smart people will take lessons and script their own new normals in this. And today, the best news is that technology allows you to be absolutely connected.
Yeah.
And you're able to do everything for which you earlier needed to get out.
So we've got a lot of people who obviously logged on here today because they're media enthusiasts in some form or in media. So I want you to tell all of us the one reason why in today's day and age, somebody should take up a media career, and one reason why they absolutely should not.
Okay. So one reason why everyone must take up the media as a career is, just imagine, even Corona doesn't stop consumption of media. When people are sitting at home, the one thing that they all want to consume is media. And whether it is serious media like, information and news and knowledge, to,
sports has brought it, and to sports, which in some sense is media.
Yeah, it's absolutely media.
Yeah.
And so also, look, there is a lot of good that media does. Today, whenever the world is uncertain, the one thing that we gravitate towards is media, is content. We want to know, because information and media brings in information and awareness, and information and awareness give you a sense of comfort and assurance in the volatile world, in the uncertain world. So that's a great reason to be in. I find media very honorable.
And the reason why you would not? Why would you tell someone stay away from it?
There are many reasons. One, it's relentless. It just doesn't stop. When times are good.
But I'm a young 1-year-old. I want to be relentless for the next 10, 15 years. Is there some reason why you feel?
If you don't mind the relentlessness of it, and if you don't mind challenging yourself every single day, and if you don't mind being, what you are saying is going to be judged by everybody who's watching or listening or reading you, there is every reason to be in media. It's a great business to be. And going forward, there was a time when you needed a lot of capital expenditure, you needed a lot of infrastructure and resources. Now you just need great content, which you can create on your mobile phone, edit on your computer, and just offer it to the whole world. So it's a great business to be in.
And so people want to, and I know earlier on you said, be careful about what you invest in. Don't invest in a car, but I hope you're advocating that people should invest in learning. I mean, I want to make sure that
as an for you, of course, as an upGrad founder, I think absolutely upGrad is doing some amazing courses, and people should definitely see if anything makes sense for them, and they should do that. But by and large, the biggest asset, and I personally been a beneficiary of this, so I speak with, this is one thing that I say with absolute confidence, is that there is nothing better than curiosity and learning to get to a better place in life. I don't have, I'm not a trained MBA. I never was trained for sales, marketing, finance. And today I have to be responsible for all of that. And I have learned that informally by just watching, talking, and reading. Today, you have online courses available.
Yeah.
That allow you to make that choice. Why would you not take advantage of that? The problem is that, when education is tough, people seek it out. When it's readily available on tap, sometimes we don't appreciate the value of it. But this is amazing. You can go and see what excites you, and see what will make you more productive, socially and economically more useful, and just learn it.
So I've got two last questions because we've reached the 45-minute marker. I think my second last one is, your portfolio is all of Asia Pacific. So just for all our listeners here, your perspective on China, Japan versus India today, and the economic context of the next, because I'm sure every morning you're getting up talking to Southeast Asia, and every evening you're getting up, staying up and talking to Los Angeles and Burbank. So that's your long day. But it also gives you an incredible global perspective, since you look after China to Japan to Australia and all of that. So just some sense of international indexing for every one of us to understand here.
Thank you. It does. So I think in all of this, what China has done is first of all, the virus originated there, and without getting into the details or controversy of what exactly happened,
that is the proprietary of only President Trump. But yeah,
exactly. But we do know that it started from Wuhan, and China shut down in large parts of it. But I also think it's very impressive the singularity of focus with which China has come back. We have offices in Guangzhou, Shanghai, Beijing, and all those offices are open and people are going there. There is obviously people, the country as a whole is very disciplined. There is a culture of discipline. So people are following the discipline of social distancing, keeping personal hygiene, putting masks, using sanitizers. But life is back to normal. It is because people are doing the right things. I think that is pretty phenomenal. And my one learning is that China really realized very quickly that the virus was going to be around for some time, and how to create, normalcy with that context. Those who do that individually and collectively, countries and societies, will be able to come back much faster. I think South Korea has done a great job, and the message that comes from countries like South Korea and Singapore, etc., is even Japan now, is investment in healthcare. Having a great healthcare infrastructure is is going to be remarkable, because those who don't have it will have a much bigger challenge versus those who have it. So South Korea, per unit of population, they.
So you draw inspiration from any of these countries when you're looking at really India as the hub, and anything that anyone can take away from here on just that in way of working, approaching the problem as we go forward and unfolding over the next year?
I think, from North Asia, whether it is China, Japan, South Korea, I'm very impressed by the discipline and dedication to a dedication to a task, focus, and also the especially in Japan, the spirit to collaborate, that community comes before everything else. Those are really, really powerful messages that I take.
Collaboration, I think, very important, and especially at a time like this, I think that's
Yes.
a major call out.
Yeah.
So just lastly, because to me that's important, and there are a lot of leaders also, and everyone here wants to be a leader. So today, what would we sort of say to them are the one or two things you have to think, you have to lead very, very differently? I mean, I have two mantras that I think the 21 days at home has resonated with me. I think it was there, but for me, I think less for more is what I'm obsessed with. I've sat at home for 21 days, and I think at the end of 21 days, and I still think we have a month to go, but really just being a little bit more focused and actually having higher impact, and less for more is a mantra that I think I've evolved and strengthened in my mind. And I think the second one for me has been breaking glass ceilings, because I think glass ceilings are meant to be broken, but somehow we never go out and have the guts to break them. And then we kind of look horizontally instead of looking vertically. So these are two things that really stuck with me and evolved as you spend time a lot alone on yourself. So just your message on the two things really we need to do very differently as leaders going forward now, whether you're a manager, a leader, a CEO, whoever.
So, the game came to a pause, and it is not restarting. It is going to start again. The game was a washout. So that's how we should see it. So what you were doing so far, examine and re-examine everything that you were doing. Because just because it worked so far, it is not going to work. I'll just give you a very simple example. A show on one of our entertainment channels, a show that you were doing, and it was doing really very well, because people were coming day after day at a fixed time and watching it, and there was a habit. Now that, because the production has come to a stop, that habit might have might have been interrupted. Do you want to resume that show? And, you may want to, but the fact that it was doing well before the lockdown began and production was stopped may not be the right reason to do that, because people didn't watch it for 3 weeks. They may have found something different in this time, and they might have moved on. You must have a better reason than that. So resumption of what you were doing is a bad idea. It's dangerous. Examine and re-examine what you were doing, and there's no better time to filter out what you may not need. So that's one. Secondly, somewhat to what you said, less is more. I genuinely believe the one thing that I've taken in these days is that I have been very impactful and very productive, because I have just been able to cut through everything that was inessential. So going forward, because the economy is going to be struggling, the environment is going to be somewhat cynical and full of fear. Access to cash and debt and working capital and capex, etc., all of that is going to be tough, and consumers are going to be very, very conservative. Try to do, instead of doing 5 things, try to do 1 or 2 things, and see how those 1 or 2 things can deliver the same business goals that you expected 5 things that would have done. So do one or two things. It's the time for watching every ball, again, to use a cricket metaphor. Watch every ball, let most of the balls go, pick your ball and hit it out of the park.
So recalibrate and focus, I think, are very, very takeaways from here. Yeah. Uday, really, thank you very much. I think this was an interesting session. I know you have a very long day, and I'm glad you took this time off for everyone here.
I enjoyed it. I hope it was useful. All the best, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.